Welcome back, everybody. We're going to go over a little bit of news that came out over the weekend that says a lot about Donald Trump and his psychology, and also about a potentially looming schism in the White House. I want to apologize in advance for that absolutely idiotic title. I'm genuinely interested to see if that gets anyone to click on the video. In a perfect world, no one would because it's stupid, but we live in a very weird world. So the news that I'm implying, and you probably get it from the title, is what came out through the New York Times over the course of the weekend, and that's that the executive order that about a week ago, a little bit over a week ago, Donald Trump signed, that put Steve Bannon on one of the permanent sub-councils of the National Security Council, was given to him to sign without him really understanding it. There's a general point there, but we want to be specific to this, at least in the beginning. It was that it put Steve Bannon, a guy with no political experience, basically no military experience that I know of. I don't believe he has any. No understanding of national security aside from the insane ramblings of far-right whack jobs that he helps to curate on the internet for a number of years, that he's going to be one of the principal people tasked with keeping America safe. Now, that seemed crazy to me, to many rational people. Apparently, it was also a little bit crazy to Donald Trump because sources are saying that he didn't actually know that that's what was going to happen when he signed the executive order. And the consequences could be interesting because apparently not being fully briefed on the appointment is, quote, a greater source of frustration to the president than the fallout from the travel ban. Now, we have to acknowledge a couple of things in the beginning. One, this is sources inside of the Trump administration, the Trump White House, giving information to the New York Times. It is possible that they are wrong. They could be actual sources and have gotten wrong what he actually thinks about it. That's entirely possible. It could be that the little bit of information they're giving is overplaying how frustrated Donald Trump is. That's entirely possible too. It's also possible that it's not actually a source and that the New York Times is being hoodwinked in some way. I find that to be unlikely because, unlike Trump, I don't believe that any news source that I don't like is automatically fake news. But you could think that, I suppose. But let's at least hypothesize. Let's work from the presumption that this is actually true and think about what it could potentially mean. So, on the base level, we know now that, as we suspected, Donald Trump is signing things that he doesn't understand. We've been told many times over the course of both the primary and general election that he doesn't actually read the executive orders that he signs, that he's not a big reader in general, that he just accepts things, that he wants bullet point lists. He wants you to spit it to him fast, okay, fast and loose. He doesn't need the details, and that has consequences. That has consequences for Donald Trump even. I'm not just saying the things that are going to hurt me and the rest of the country. This is him apparently being bothered by this. But then specifically to this, what goes on in the National Security Council, incredibly important. This is supposed to be the coming together of the people who are in charge of our military, our intelligence gathering, and the sort of political and bureaucratic connection between all of them to discuss the threats that face America. He has no part on that. He's a political strategist. Although I'm sure he would think that he knows something about policy, he has no background in policy or any of that. Steve Bannon, I'm saying. Also Donald Trump. It's a shitty White House all around. But then let's talk about the fact that he was apparently lied to, and we know that a lot of these executive orders are being written by Steve Bannon and other Breitbart cronies of Steve Bannon. So now Trump finds out that he was lied to, that Steve Bannon manipulated him to gain more political power. So what will Trump do as a result of this? We already know Trump incredibly pissed off about all the memes and the SNL treatment that Steve Bannon is his puppet master. And now this gets out, that Steve Bannon apparently played him to get an incredible amount of political power, at least in the short term. And we know that it's getting to him because he tweeted recently that I call my own shots, which means that he sees that criticism. And here's the thing. Donald Trump is a guy who develops and holds grudges. Steve Bannon is his close confidant. He relies on him. Might have even got him in the White House. But you don't think that he'll turn on Steve Bannon when constantly, week after week, both of the joke out there that Steve Bannon is his puppet master, but also the apparent reality is that Steve Bannon is calling the shots? If anything would lead Trump to dump someone, I think that that's probably it. And what will likely happen as a result of that is, one thing, if he kicks him out, maybe it could be amicable. But if he kicks him out in a really, in a violent way, and in a way that humiliates Steve Bannon, then what's going to happen to the crazy conspiracy theory alt-right media, sorry, the white supremacist, white nationalist media that supports Donald Trump? Would they potentially turn on him? I think I know where this is going long term. Donald Trump is a guy that likes the parades and he likes the crowds. He likes the people cheering for him. But he's going to end up a lonely, isolated man puttering around the White House in a bathrobe, apparently, with no one that he can trust. Kushner is apparently is one of his confidants, but what's Kushner's motivations? We don't know. Long term, what is Kushner going to use his influence over the president and the White House for? Could he potentially turn on him as well? I mean, this is a guy who's going to grow increasingly isolated and frustrated, resentful. Like Nixon, he sees himself as surrounded by enemies at all times, the media, the judiciary, foreign countries. He likes Putin, wants to get along with Putin, but there are going to be more and more rumors of Putin being an international version of Steve Bannon in terms of controlling him. This is a guy who is... I hate the title. But a guy who's going to have some serious isolation problems. And psychologically, I don't think he's prepared. Politically, in terms of his preparation, he's not prepared to operate the government in that way. He needs someone pulling the strings. I would just prefer if it wasn't a fucking Nazi who was doing it. Anyway, that was a story we wanted to get to on the main show yesterday. Unfortunately, didn't have the time for, but I do think it's consequential. I think that the sorts of the rifts and the schisms that are setting up in the White House are going to be important. I don't know who's going to end up winning, or if Steve Bannon gets pushed out, who's going to fill that void. I doubt it's Reince Priebus, but God only knows. But anyway, this is certainly something to keep an eye on. Thanks to everybody who's been commenting along on the YouTube live. Unfortunately, I do have to run because I got to shoot Think Tank. But thank you for your comments. In the future, I'll have time to do a little bit more interaction. But thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon.